Senator again just came in and was having social hour. We'll have him give our prayer before we get started.
Dear Lord, please bless the activities of our state and local government operations committee. What we do down here at the Capitol is to please you and make Georgia a little bit better and a little bit stronger. Hope that you'll show favor upon us, and such a beautiful day outside. I don't know why my chairman's having such an inside today, but if we can go outside, that'd be even better. Amen.
Thank you. No, I don't disagree with that.
It's too pretty outside. We should be out there.
Yeah, I know. First up on our agenda, we have HB 614. Madam Pro Tem. Wherever you. Both of those mics.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be in front of this committee. I think it's the first time I've appeared before this committee in a long time. So I've got a bill for you to consider, House Bill 614. It would allow a city or a county to adopt a local ordinance to prohibit fireworks within 100 yards of a commercial facility housing horses. Did want to make it clear, I fit it within the context of the current fireworks bill. There's about 17 uses that have this 100-yard restriction now. And so I didn't want to, go beyond that, just add one more use. Some of those uses are like nursing homes, gas stations, parks, historic sites. I mean, it's a pretty long list. The reason for this is it's a very narrow attempt to try to mitigate the effects of loud noises on our small horse farms, particularly in suburban and exurban areas. As the area grows and they're surrounded by this maybe one remaining ag use that we have in these suburban and exurban areas, it's albeit just one factor that sometimes causes them to leave the area. And we're doing everything we can, certainly up where I live, but I've heard from others further out than where I live, in Hall County, and Representative Huddleston, who raises cattle but also has horses. He said it really is an issue because of the hay, the wooden structures, and it's not like a dog that you can bring inside. And so the one difference, I made it even narrower than these other 17 uses. They do not require a local ordinance. I required you to pass a local ordinance to put this in effect so that it in essence would affect nowhere else in the state unless this was a local issue and they wanted to put this ordinance into place. And that is what the bill does, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Senator again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaker Jones, I appreciate the bill, and I know more about horses than I want to. Said but in that regard, you've listed the two things that I had a question on, and one of them was you say a commercial facility. And I think about a lot of people that have a farm and they have the horses on their own property. It's not a commercial facility. And would ask you, why don't we just say, any space with equestrian on the premise or something along those lines. And then the other side of it is you're talking about a facility. So and I don't know if a pasture would consider a facility or not, but most of the time I see horses out in the pasture, and you go blowing off a bunch of fireworks right beside a pasture full of horses. That don't know if you can explain that to me. I just
Sure.
think that we might want to try to.
I really appreciate the question. To be perfectly honest, I was trying to keep it as narrow as I could because I didn't know taking a foray into this area. It's been about 10 years since we passed fireworks. I didn't want to overreach, but I'm certainly open to the will of the committee. And when I consider a commercial facility, I'm thinking of a barn, really. Do you have a barn? Do you have a
A lot of barns are not commercial, and
Right.
and that's where for me.
Commercial use, I think would be determined by the local government as to what it would be commercial. But I would be open to broadening it. Certainly my constituents would like that, but I'm just want to go along with what the committee, the will of the committee, because I originally started from the place where you are.
And to me, I don't know what the rest of the committee, but in a pasture, you know, the owner can always take their
Yes.
animals in somewhere.
Yeah.
But I would think that I would want to go to maybe 200 yards, because that way you may not be onto another person's property.
Right.
The 200 yards is not really that far. But then I would put into any equestrian housing or any building where equestrians house, whether it be ag or commercial or whatever. You know, if you've got a bunch of horses in a thing and fireworks are going off, they tend, or you know, they get kind of skittish, and
Oh, yeah.
that's most of the time. Bovine are not that bad, pigs are not that bad,
Right.
but I do understand the horse situation.
Yeah. Well, I don't object to, you know, I'm certainly open to what.
I'd like to hear from the other committee members if
Yeah.
they I know we have one that spends a lifetime on a farm, so like myself,
And so, Madam Pro Tem, I've got a question. So, the way you've got it written, you said that the local municipalities could
Right.
make their own determination what is commercial and what.
And it could be that maybe we could make it broader, but put it within the purview of the local government to determine the restrictions, so that they could make that determination. So you could broaden it, but without us having to think of every, you know, how broad we want to make it. We could leave it up to the local government.
object for me, Mr. Chairman, would be that we're not saying they have to, the local government has to enact anything like this, but giving them a little flexibility. And to me, I think if your intent of your legislation is for animal,
It is.
health, and sometimes for public's, people's safety,
Yeah.
because when they horse is pretty unruly sometimes. And
Right.
for me, I think it would be good to go to 200 yards and they include any kind of equestrian facility.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to my former colleague, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I just have a question. Like in the city of Savannah, for example, we have a mounted patrol. They have about 7 to 10 horses, and they do have stables. Their horses are trained to deal with gunshots, loud noises, and the sort when in service. Would this bill apply for them to have that coverage, for example, for their barn and facility? I know it says commercial. City government's not really commercial, but they do have a stable of about 10 horses.
Is the facility owned by the city now? Then it's already included in current law, because any government-owned property is given that 100-yard restriction currently.
Perfect.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Can you hear me now? Yes.
Thank you.
And so, I'm trying to think. The governing authority of a county or municipal corporation may adopt an ordinance prohibiting the use or ignition of consumer fireworks within, whether you want to make it 100 or 200 yards, or you could make it up to 200 yards. That gives them the discretion as to how, up to 200 yards of a facility housing equines, I guess by confined area, that's in a fenced-in area, and may adopt. Somehow we want to give them some discretion as to particulars. 'Cause what I was trying to avoid, Senator, was that you wouldn't necessarily always put this into place every time someone had a horse, because it might be difficult to police. But we could leave it to them, to their discretion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I grew up around horses too. I remember the wildest ride I had. I was about 12 years old when someone cranked up a lawnmower when I was riding mine, and that was a wild ride.
Yeah.
I would just propose striking the word commercial
Okay.
and just say fireworks within 200 yards of a facility housing equines in a confined area, and just do away with the word commercial. I mean,
Senator, if I may, could we make it up to 200 yards?
Sure.
So that they could make that decision? I mean, really, my people are going to love the Senate a lot more than the House in my version. So I was just trying to not.
well, also, some local governments don't have zoning.
That's right.
So some of them down in our area, there's no zoning. Some of them have land use plans, but there's no
Right.
zoning at all.
That's right.
So just doing something broad, just to say a facility housing,
So just take
seems to
out
make
the
a lot more
word,
sense.
commercial.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Motion,
Thank you. Any further comments, questions?
motion to pass. LC 443088, and then we'll make some amendments, hopefully.
We've got a motion to pass. We've got a second. Now we'll take up, we've got Senator again is recognized currently.
And following a good suggestion there, let's strike on line 14 the word within and change it to up to. Striking 100, change it to 200. If you look over on page 2, the line 19, strike within to change it to up to, and striking 100 to change it to 200.
And the word commercial.
And the word striking commercial off of line 15 and off of the line 19. And
Thank you for improving it.
Okay, we've got a motion. We got a second on the amendment. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Now we'll take up the underlying bill as amended. We've got a motion and a second do pass. All in favor, raise your hand.
that be passed as a
unanimously.
committee
Thank you very much.
substitute.
Thank you. I really appreciate you
Okay.
perfecting the bill.
Thank you. Next up, we've got House Bill 516.
Mr. Chairman, just because we're nice to one House member, do we have to be nice to them all? She's kind of new.
Yes, sir, I'm a new woman every day.
I would recommend being nice. They've got all of our Senate bills in the House now, so
Thank you, Chairman.
thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Senators. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about House Bill 516. And I have with me today the Assistant State Librarian, Ben Carter. This bill allows county and regional library boards and community service boards to conduct meetings through teleconferencing. Currently, state law allows for statewide agencies to meet remotely. However, public library boards and community service boards are not included in this provision. These boards are appointed by local government officials from agencies that financially support the libraries and the community service boards. County and regional boards of trustees and they are designated as the governing authorities of these boards in the state law. So their meetings are crucial to the ongoing operations of our public libraries and service boards. These boards are experiencing increasing difficulty in recruiting, retention, and maintaining quorums for their meetings due to the work obligations, travel distances, and conflicting events with family and community demands of these members. While there is a great value in in-person meetings, it would be extremely helpful for virtual participation to be an option for these unpaid, busy volunteers who provide meaningful governance and support to our libraries and community service boards. Some of our region systems for the libraries comprise of 7 counties. Their meetings are generally at night, so they're going great distances starting at night, and if they have a family, it's almost improbable, very hard for them to get to these meetings. It is vital for every library system to have representation from all member counties for their governing boards. So the 60 county and regional library systems in Georgia, as well as the CSB Association, all support this bill. That is the bill. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any comments, questions from committee? Mr. Whip?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 times in one day.
I know.
Yeah, one of us is lucky. The purpose of these boards are exactly what?
There to meet for the business of the state of Georgia for libraries, for your local libraries, and for your community service boards.
Do they currently offer time for public comment from citizens?
They will. I have asked the question because that was my concern as well. Yes, they will.
Do they currently do that?
I believe they do. I will refer to my colleague here.
Thank you. Most of our library boards do formally have it on the agenda or as part of the process upon request. With some of our boards, so the smaller library systems have a more informal relationship where anybody who shows up at the meeting gets to talk to the board. It may not be on the agenda, but it's part of that relationship.
Well, libraries and public comment, I think, have been a hot button issue of late that we've seen. And my biggest concern is that we do anything that might allow a library board to silent a citizen who may want to have some input on the operations of libraries. So I think you understand what my concern is about that, to make sure that given them this opportunity, would there be an opportunity, Mr. Chair, if the chair is willing, for me to ask this follow-up, would there be an opportunity that some of these boards could go fully virtual and they only meet via virtual technology?
I can speak to that. In my experience before working for the Georgia Public Library Service, part of the state, I was a library director for 2 different library systems. The goal is never to go fully virtual. We're not trying to shift library board meetings into a virtual space where people lose their voice. We're trying to make it possible for library boards who might only have 6 members to make sure that at least 4, even if one of those has to dial in, at least those 4 members can make it to the meeting. We currently have provisions in place. If there's a state of emergency, we are allowed to meet remotely. That involves making any virtual access made available to a trustee available to the public. That is how our current system plays out. It's not a private virtual meeting. You can attend the in-person meeting. We also make the virtual meeting an option for anyone from the public who would like to join as well.
But there's nothing in the legislation that I can see that would prohibit the board from making all of their meetings virtual meetings, right?
As I understand it, this just allows, doesn't stop them from having meetings, it just allows them to include virtual.
Right, but
Yes.
it could also include to allow them to hold nothing but virtual meetings, correct? And if I'm misreading, I apologize.
So it is just adding it to the code.
Okay, as a tool that they
Yeah.
could use to
Yeah.
meet. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you.
Senator again?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I spent 10 years on the Athens Regional Library Board. I spent 10 years on my home county library board. I've done a lot of work to support libraries since I've been down here in the legislature, and proud of what I've tried to do to promote libraries. I'm a recovering city and county manager for 20 years, and one of the things that, to me, I really think it's important for people to be able to sit in a meeting, come to a meeting and attend and get to talk to board members and do that in person. And when I look at this, I kind of am listening to what our whip is telling me, and I'm worried that this could be a problem. And to me, I understand, yeah, it's better to have somebody that is willing to serve on a library board. It is one of those things. Most of the library boards that I've ever dealt with, usually it's a retired educator or an active educator. I was exception to that rule. But you know, that's where I think it's important that we meet as much as possible. So I don't know if you want to look at maybe putting some limitations on this. For me, I don't know that I'm ready to support a bill like this without some extreme limitations, and that would be maybe a percentage of the board. If you've got 20% or less of the board that's not going to be attend, maybe they can attend virtually, or you require, a certain amount of meetings, or some limitations because I can't support it like it is. And that's difficult for me to tell you that, because I do support my libraries, but I do think it's important that you have a face-to-face connection with people at public meetings like that.
So would you recommend the words for it?
The,
So I could
I-
edit? I would be more than happy to. I'm open to the will of the committee.
I'd have to defer to council, and what I would suggest is that if it's okay with the chairman, is that we ask you to come back with some verbiage on that to our next meeting, and I can support it. If we can tighten up that language, and I think it would be a much better bill to do, and it's one that, for me, that's I want to help my libraries. I understand that the problem with, everybody being there, but I do think it's important to have those, public meetings with the public being able to come and participate in a face-to-face meeting.
Thank you. And I will take that to heart, and thank you very much.
Well, thank y'all.
Senator Mallow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative, and to the gentleman representing the libraries, can you all elaborate on, just for example, my library is the Live Oak Public Library. They include 3 counties. And I believe most of the board meetings will probably be in Savannah, but people from Effingham would have to drive in to attend a board meeting in Savannah. Are there any other larger systems larger than 3 counties, or
There is one that has 7 counties.
that have
Yes, sir.
7 counties?
Yes, sir.
So the board members from those counties may have challenges attending the meeting.
Yes.
So is it any way to speak to the majority whip and my good friend, the senator from the 47th, to alleviate their concerns with that? But also, if the board does have a meeting and the virtual option is there, because the meetings are in Savannah and there are 2 other counties that are not in Savannah, wouldn't this allow for more public comment, because the public now has the opportunity to Zoom into the meeting, call into the meeting to voice their concern or opposition, whereas if they live in the other 2 counties, they have to drive to Savannah to do that currently?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And I agree for the public input. So Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'd like to move to just table the bill right now. Mr. Higbee tells me he was not the original drafter of the legislation. We go back to legislative council, make some suggestions, and
Yes, sir.
if that's okay with
course.
I don't want to hurt your bill, but I
all
at
good.
the same time I think we can make it a little bit better, and I wouldn't want to try to do that on the fly today. If so, I'll make a move to table.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
We've got a motion and a second to table to further perfect the bill over here in the Senate, and that's what we do. But,
That's okay.
but thank you for being
Thank you.
amenable to that.
It is,
and,
it is a great suggestion, and I appreciate it.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely. We'll give you all some time to work together and get you back in here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. You got a call?
You-
Oh, that's right. Yeah, all in favor of tabling the bill, raise your hand. Any opposed? So we've got 4 in favor, 2 opposed. Thank you. Moving on to HB 137, working off of LC 473227. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please proceed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee, for allowing me to bring before you today House Bill 137. This is a retread. We actually passed this out of the House last year, passed this committee last year, got held up in Senate rules with several bills, as many Senate bills got held up in our rules last year. So I'm bringing this for you again. This is a second, last year and this year's bill is a second iteration of this bill. In '23, we passed House Bill 193 through both chambers. It got to the governor's desk. What House Bill 193 did was increase the public works purchasing limit in state statute that requires bidding from $100,000 to $250,000. That's a dollar. The $100,000 amount was put in place in 2001, has not been adjusted or changed since that time. The reason the bill got vetoed that year was it only covered municipals, counties, and consolidated governments. It did not cover state agencies. So last year, we went back through, went to every state agency, everybody who could potentially be impacted by this, gave them the option to be included in this bill. Just a couple, GDOT and another one decided not to be included in this because they had their own program going at the time. And so we have included that. This is pretty much the same bill we had last year, and I would like to present it to the committee for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Comments, questions? Senator again.
When you're ready to make a motion, I'll move do pass.
Oh, we've got a couple of folks signed up to speak on this. Hold tight, Senator again. We'll get right back to your motion.
They might delay the process, Mr. Chairman.
It's true.
Just
Yeah, I
saying.
think that was the quickest 3 presentations I've ever had in committee. I think we need to duly note that that is definitely a record.
Move do pass.
Yeah, we'll entertain your motion now, Senator
Move.
again. We got a motion and a second, do pass. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you,
You can
sir.
just sit right there if you like.
Thank you.
All right, next up, our last bill of the day, HB 155, working off of LC 473326S.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, again. And yes, this is a committee substitute I'm bringing to you and I'll explain why we're bringing a substitute to House Bill 155. As we all do, once we work on bills, we go through the process, they get signed into law, where our job is not done. We follow them up, we follow through to make sure that the legislative intent is followed and that things happen the way they're supposed to happen based on the intent that we had. The original House Bill 155 is just that. It's a follow-up to an annexation dispute resolution bill that again, passed both chambers and was signed into law in 2022. The intent of that was to allow the annexation dispute process to work the way it was originally intended in law. There were some issues causing log jams in the process. At the time, we cleared up a lot of those, expanded timeframes, that sort of thing. Now here we are a couple of years later, and we've uncovered the next log jam downstream in this process, and that is seating the annexation dispute panel, the arbitration panel. So what this bill does is we've expanded the pool of people available to serve on these arbitration panels. We have increased the time frame by 5 days that DCA has to seat these panels. We've made a slight increase, give basically $100 stipend for individuals agreeing to serve on the panel. We also have given DCA the option, if a county or city does not exercise their strikes in the panel seating process, then DCA has the option to go ahead and randomly appoint that panel. Then, if for some reason someone is unable to continue to serve on the panel, DCA has the option to replace that person on the panel. This bit of legislation, the original portion of this bill, which I'm telling you all this, and let me tell you what we're talking about here. We're actually talking about Section 1 of the substitute, but what it came from a joint effort between DCA, ACCG, and GMA. And I think we have representatives from ACCG and GMA here to speak in favor of this, because it actually it will help the process to work the way it's designed and keep arbitration disputes from getting kicked over into the court system where nobody really benefits. So that's the first portion. The second portion of this bill is a bill, it was House Bill 318, passed unanimously out of our Governmental Affairs Committee. Again, it's a follow-up to a 2022 comprehensive rewrite of zoning procedures law. A lot of times there are unintended consequences. In this case, special administrative permits were kind of swept up in other zoning permit requirements in this rewrite of the law, and were required to have a series of public meetings in order to get approval, when they are just what the name says. They're designed to be administrative permits. What this does is it takes that single classification, reverts it back to the procedures and policies prior to the 2022 rewrite, and makes it so that the local government can decide whether those special administrative permits can be approved administratively or require going through the legislative process involving public hearings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any comments or questions from the committee?
Any other persons speaking in for or against this legislation signed up?
Yeah, we've got 3 people
Okay.
in support. Thank you. Seeing no comments, we've got some folks signed up to speak. Todd Edwards.
I'll be very brief. Todd Edwards with the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. We fully support the legislation, both parts in front of you. I know there's new language on the zoning appeals. Support that as well. Worked very hard over the past couple of years with all parties aforementioned, and coming to this consensus legislation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Again, ACCG supports this legislation. Ask for your support.
Thank you for your comments. Any questions from committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was curious, when you talk about the $100 a day that you're compensating people that serve on the panel, who's paying that?
It's split between the city and the county.
Okay.
And
No, I was just going to say, it's not $100 per day. It's $100
In
stipend for serving on the panel, in addition to the per diem that's already in state code.
They get the same per diem as members of the General Assembly do per day. And
Well, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit confused, but why the additional $100 above what? I know we're overpaid is what most everybody says, but why are we adding $100 to the per diem on that? That's one of those things I'm not sure if I understand.
I will defer that question to the representatives that were part of the discussion that reached that.
well, there's a number of issues that impacted DCA's ability to fulfill its statutory obligations and fill the panel. One of them was that the cost, for taking everyone like y'all full-time jobs, could be other elected officials doing their city-county duties, is added as an incentive to incentivize those to serve on the panels.
Just presents itself as a problem. It's not our money. So if you locals are paying it, said leave it alone.
Of course, Senator, I would definitely be welcome to the will of the committee, and I will just say this: the purpose of doing this is to prevent these processes from getting kicked over into the judicial side, which definitely the expense there far exceeds anything we could do at this point, looking at what we're doing. So,
Mr. Edwards, have you heard from any local municipalities that were opposed to that $100, or you heard any type of?
We have not
comments
heard from any of our members, the counties, that had an issue with that problem,
Thank you.
or issue with that.
Then next up is Jim Thornton.
Yeah, I correct. Had an issue with that amount being added. Excuse me. Correct. That was a misstatement. I apologize. Thank you. Except for that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim Thornton with GMA. And just to reiterate what Chairman Anderson as well as Todd Edwards, the ACCG, said, This bill, the underlying bill on annexation, is a product of some very thoughtful conversation between GMA, ACCG, DCA. We feel like it's an improvement to the process. We'll make it easier for DCA to create these panels and resolve these disputes without litigation. And so GMA supports the underlying bill, 155. And then we also are supportive of the zoning procedures that is being added from 318. So I'll be glad to take any questions. But
Thank you. Mr. Whip?
Thank you. Mr. Thornton, right now, are there liability costs or are there legal costs that y'all are experiencing in this process now?
So yes, so just as an example, just this week, there was a decision handed down by the Court of Appeals in an annexation dispute between Noonan and Coweta County, where in that instance, DCA was able to create a panel, but there was a resignation basically in the process, and so they weren't able to complete the work of the panel, and so the panel failed in that instance, and it ended up resulting in litigation that not only went through the Superior Court in Coweta County, but also to the Court of Appeals. So I don't know what Noonan and Coweta County paid in that dispute, but it certainly would be far in excess of what the panel would have been, even with the little additional compensation.
Thank you.
Senator Ginn?
Mr. Thornton, would you mind addressing, I'm a little confused on, okay, the people, let's just say you have a city or county manager that comes up to be on a panel. Is the panel always done in Atlanta? Is it done in their community? Are they doing it on where they're an employee of the city or county, either case? Are they still making their regular salary? How would you propose that this would work? And, to me, I'm just trying to, it is tax money we're talking about.
Sure. So under current law, only the elected officials are eligible to serve as panelists. So the full-time employees, the city managers, county managers, et cetera, are not included. And just like you all, most of our elected officials are not full-time employees for the city or the county. They have other jobs, et cetera. So it has been difficult sometimes to get mayors, county commissioners, et cetera, to want to go through the Carl Vinson training, to go through the process of being an approved panelist, and then also committing their time. They have to travel somewhere, because under current law and under the proposed law, they are required to be disinterested, right? So you're not going to have an elected official, to use my Noonan Coweta example, you're not going to have an elected official from Sonoya or another conflict area potentially on the panel. So they're by definition going to have to be traveling. To your point, though, by expanding the panel to city managers and county managers, not only do we feel like we get panelists that have more expertise sometimes in dealing with these issues, but we also have those who might otherwise have time available. They're not, if the city would give them permission to serve on a panel, then they could do that. And the additional compensation was really just seen as a small incentive to try to encourage them to sign up and agree, because it's not just serving on the panel. They also do have mandated training they have to go through and other things to become a certified arbitrator.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Andy Welch.
Mr. Chairman, I'm here to speak of the portion that's House Bill 318, but if there are no questions, then I just waive.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments, questions from the committee? Chair, entertain a motion.
Motion to pass.
We got a motion to pass. We got a second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, who do you have Senate sponsor for both of those bills?
The 137, the first bill, Senator Chairman Brass, and 155, Senator Eccles.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We are adjourned. Thank you all for being here today.